Welcome all. It is March 4th, the Protective Services Standing Committee meeting. I can confirm that we have quorum, and I will hand the chair over to Councillor Corbett.
Madam Mayor, acknowledgement of First Nation. The Mayor and Council wish to acknowledge the town of Fort Smith is located within Treaty 8 territory. Treaty 8 territory also encompasses the traditional homelands of the Salt River First Nation, Smith Landing First Nation, and the indigenous Métis people of Fort Smith. These nations have maintained stewardship of their sacred lands throughout generations. We honor their knowledge, teachings, traditions, and the land. We are mindful that colonization has not been kind. We respectfully recognize our generational histories and commit to strive for unity in the spirit of truth and reconciliation. And with that, we'll move to the agenda. Meeting's been called to order, so the next item is item B, review. If I could have somebody move adoption of the agenda.
I move that the agenda be adopted as presented.
I'll second that.
Okay. Moved by the Councillor Day, seconded by Mayor Ferguson. Any additions, comments, changes? Seeing none, all in favor of the agenda as presented? Adopted unanimously. The next item is, The next item is minutes. And if I could have somebody move for the minutes from the Protective Services meeting of February 4th.
I move that the minutes for the Protective Services Standing Committee meeting on February 4th, 2025 be adopted as presented.
Seconded by Councillor Bedwell. Any comments regarding the minutes that were presented? Seeing that, we'll move on to, all in favor? Adopted unanimously. It'll be a long night. Visions and values are in the package for review. And I'd like to just make a quick comment that the visions, at least the vision for the community has been updated within our new 2025 to 2029 strategic plan. And I'd like to thank Mayor and Councils for the hard work that was done to put together the vision, and for administration following through to see that it is now included in our strategic plan. If there's any additional comments, seeing none, declarations of financial interest that were presented. Moving to item C on the agenda, which is director's report. SAO, I will turn the floor over to you.
We have just discovered that we do not have the Protective Services report enclosed in our package. So the Director of Protective Services is going to speak to his report, and we will provide it via email.
Director McDonough.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Coubret. So this month's report really didn't highlight anything out of the ordinary. Fortunately for both our community and the volunteers, we saw a reduction in fire and ambulance calls from last month, slightly lower than the average, 5-year average. Again, we're glad to see that people aren't in need of emergency services as much. This month, lands and development summary. So enforcement across all of our lands bylaws is down significantly this time of year. It's difficult to really engage much in land enforcement, as well as our lands and development officer is quite busy with taxation right now. So working with property tax files, updating our computer system, getting ready for any necessary Board of Revision items. So that's primary focus for lands and development over January, February. By law enforcement, a lot of animal control and traffic issues, mostly animal control over the last month though. Animals loose, animals being surrendered. Emergency management, ongoing work again with updating the plan in advance of the coming wildfire season. That work's ongoing. As well as preparing tenders for Fire Smart vegetation management work that we're going to be rolling out over the next couple months. We hope to get at least one of the projects on the books done before the spring melt and migratory bird season. Otherwise, the rest of it will have to wait through the summer months and be done in the fall. We do have a capital line for maintenance of existing Fire Smart work. So certainly that's work that will be happening over the summer months, if not big breaks. And then traditionally the fire department works with some of our community partners and we do some burning. So we'll definitely be working towards doing some Fire Smart burns in the spring. It's a great opportunity for us to work with ECC as well on just doing some joint training effort around wildfire and grassland fire response work. So we'll continue to prepare for that as far as emergency management coming into the wildfire season. And then the last point, occupational health and safety. So we had 22 events brought forward through our OHS program over the month of February, and a large portion of it is related to the recreation center and primarily around youth and involvement with drugs, alcohol, graffiti, things of that nature. So that's a real pressure point right now for our staff when working in our facilities. So that was really clear in the statistics. The only other thing, licensing report, UDOT tags issued. There were 5 development permits issued over the month of February and 1 new business license. We're still working on people trickling in with renewals of business licenses, so we'll be reminding folks that have outstanding business license renewals that they are past due. There is a late fee for being past due, and we'll get to the point where eventually in the year it's not just past due, it's now operating a business without a license. The bylaw allows for a month and a half, February 15th, so a month and a half grace period into the new year, but after that, really we're moving into people operating a business without a license. We'll work with business operators though over the coming month.
Thank you, Director McKenna. Is there any questions regarding the report? Mayor Ferguson.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Chair. That's okay. When we were just up at NWTAC, I know the Minister of MACA asked everyone if we all had our 72-hour kits available already in the event of an emergency, and I don't think many people put their hands up. So I don't know if we have messaging or stuff in prepared and of the season of coming up. Is there like a PSA going out? Is there reminders going out? What are we doing to be prepared in the event of emergency? What does that look like for the department? And also, I know that we have missed, I think, a couple years, but rightfully because we've had emergency situations, we haven't had our mock disaster and it's well overdue. I'm just wondering if there's any plans for that kind of training and in the future for us. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor Ferguson. So to the first point, we do have a suite of PSAs that we put out every year. It's difficult when communicating with the public. If you go too far in advance, it often gets lost. So I hope to wait until the emergency management management plan is ready to release, and then we'll begin that work a month or two before we traditionally see the fire season start. So my goal is the beginning of April. Next month, we would start to move forward with that, and some public engagement around the new emergency management plan. Will definitely be testing our emergency communication system like we have over the last couple of years, and part of that is helping to push out some more information. So we definitely have intentions to do that, and we'll continue to update some of our PSAs and messaging just to keep it fresh and updated with the most current guidelines. And then on that second point about our large-scale emergency event that we traditionally have, it's actually not run by the town, that's not driven by the town, that's driven by GNWT Infrastructure through their airports division. And so we participate in it. It is a great event. It's a Transport Canada requirement for any airport through their safety management system. And it's required in the absence of having used their emergency plan every 3 years. Since we had a large-scale emergency at this airport a year ago, over a year ago, that was considered adequate for the purposes of engaging in the plan and could be used to reset the clock and push it back another 3 years. It is pretty resource intensive to conduct those kinds of large-scale activities, so I think we'll see it happening in, if not next year, the year after, as far as I understand. But the department does engage in some mass casualty incident training internally, and we do try to engage our partners. So the health center and we work collaboratively. I hope to do that over the summer.
With respect to the business licenses, has there ever been an investigation into making it easier to do them online? Like, I know as a business owner myself, I never intend to submit anything. I've paid that late fee before, but it always seems to come at a really busy time of year. And basically, I would gladly fill out an online form and pay the fee, right? Even if it meant paying a little bit more because you just not have to come into town or not have to deal with the paperwork. And just if we could streamline that, maybe you wouldn't have to spend the effort enforcing those late ones.
Thank you, Councillor Bay. I would love to see more online options for folks for a number of things, including dog tags, business licensing, development permits. It's certainly something being explored, and I think it was identified by this council for us to look at as one of the strategies going forward. In the absence of that, what the town has done and did do this year was mailed out the one-page application form to every existing business license holder in advance of that deadline. So as of right now, it's a single-page form. You're right, though, it does require people to come into town hall to make that payment, and I think that is one of the challenges. So part of going to an online application process would also mean that the town's website would need to be able to have online payment processing, which is outside of my purview. But again, I think something that is being looked at has been looked at in the past, and now that we have a new website, I think there's a new opportunity to look at that.
Thanks.
Thank you. Definitely something that was identified both internally but as well as during the organizational review was the need to automate a lot of the processes. And that's definitely one we are going to move forward on. It's how, it's when, it's the time, and what the cost would be. But it's definitely been identified as a priority.
Thank you.
Any other questions regarding the report? Okay, seeing that, we will move on to the next item on the agenda. Item D under administration. Item A, please note PTA 00325. Would somebody please move motion?
I move that DPA -003-25 submitted by Nita Leslie, to operate a traditional crafting business. Pinmat Siswin, designed from Block 654, Plan 319, 100 Hooperville Crescent, Port Smith, Brooklyn.
Seconded by Deputy Mayor Kaiser. Do you have any, SEO, any comments regarding the briefing note?
I don't have any comments, is there any questions?
Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? Passed unanimously. Item B, briefing note, TPA 006-25. Could I have somebody move?
I move that DPA 006-25 submitted by Tanya Hodnott to operate a consulting and coaching business, Co-Create Polarities, from lot 1203, Plan 158811 Wilderness Road, Fort Smith, be approved.
I second it.
Seconded by Councillor Bay. SAO, any comments on regards to the briefing note?
I don't have any comments, Director, do you have anything to add to this?
Okay. Any questions regarding the? Seeing none, all in favor? Passed unanimously. Item C, briefing note DPA 007-25.
I move that DPA -007-25 submitted by John Susi to operate a consulting business, JS Consulting, at lot 939, Plan 1534, 6 Wapiti Street, Fort Smith, be approved.
Seconded by Mayor Ferguson. SAO?
I have nothing to add.
Thank you. Any questions regarding the development? Seeing none, all in favor? Passed unanimously. Yes, moving on. Item D, briefing note, angled parking on Simpson Street. Somebody move? Or do we want to address the briefing note first? SAO?
I prefer that we address the briefing note because the motion that we've made is Lee's option for to be determined.
SAO?
I'll let Director McNabb speak to this one if you'd like.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Coubret. So on Simpson Street, there is on-street parking. On-street parking is the town's responsibility through mayor and council to decide to allow or disallow, or how we're going to allow it, so the configuration of the parking. As of right now, that building has on-street parking adjacent to it, but it is the town's parking. It's on town administered land. It services the building though adjacent to it and any of the other buildings on Simpson Street. There really isn't, it's not specific to any one structure, it just happened to be tied at the time to a particular development. At the time of approval of that project to fill in the ditch and to pave it and allow for on-street parking, it was initially presented to Mayor and Council in 2015 as being angled parking. After Council approved the angled parking as the layout for that on-street parking, a couple weeks later it was brought back for discussion because of concerns around space and the fact that those cars would likely impede either traffic or the sidewalk. Mayor and Council at the time then repealed their original decision and provided a decision back to administration that administration would decide essentially the best way forward. I'm only able to access the information that I have through motions of council and the approved development permits, but essentially at that point and going forward, angled parking persisted. So that's where we're at now, is that there's angled parking on Simpson Street. Given the way that that road and sidewalk were installed, the sidewalk doesn't have there is no curve, like in a curb and gutter style community where you would hit the sidewalk or hit the curb, and that's as far as you would drive. So now you can park your vehicle all the way on the sidewalk. It's not the exact same grade as the road. So there's nothing to stop vehicles as of right now from parking on the sidewalk. Because of the amount of space available, most vehicles, unless they're extremely small sedans or small crossover SUVs, do not fit. And the only way for them to get completely off the road is to almost completely cover the sidewalk. The only way for them to get off the sidewalk is to jut out quite significantly into the road, and especially right now when there are berms of snow, of course, because it's winter time. And so that road is narrow on a good day. It is much narrower when people are parking to avoid being on the sidewalk, or people end up parking on the sidewalk to avoid the road. Concerns have been raised, a number of concerns over the years have been raised by citizens to the bylaw officer, insisting that it's an enforcement issue and bylaw should enforce people to get off the sidewalk, so we do that. And then people complain that there are vehicles on the road. So we talk to them about it and say you can only have the small vehicles, and then they're back on the sidewalk. And at this time of year, a lot of parents are understandably concerned because kids in, say, Star Skate Track at 4 o'clock are walking to the arena, and they're coming from the school direction, so that's generally the side of the road they try to walk on. So now they're walking behind cars on Simpson Street for cars driving to try and get to the arena, which is just one example of pedestrians being put in harm's way. So in order to mitigate the hazards, to reduce the burden on enforcement, and to allow for ongoing parking solutions, we looked at the Transportation Master Plan, which did address this problem. So when the Transportation Master Plan review was conducted, they looked at that street, they looked at the parking problems. It was very clear to the contractor that there were parking problems, and they recommended that potentially Simpson could be a one-way street. Leave the angled parking, ensure that cars are off of the sidewalk, and just make it a one-way street. That is an option I brought forward because, again, it's been identified by contract company through plan. It's not the only option though, so Mayor and Council could decide to revert back to having it be a parallel parking option, which certainly would resolve the space issues, still allow for parking. It would reduce the total number of stalls. However, when looking at our zoning bylaw and the parking requirements for a building of that size and occupancy use, there are enough stalls on site, on the physical property of the McDougall Center to accommodate, in theory, the staff and the patrons that would frequent those businesses. We could just get rid of parking altogether. I didn't put that on there as an option, but I suppose that is also an option. If we could just take it back up and make it a ditch again. I tried to continue in the vein of having some parking available. And then the third option would be to maintain angled parking with small car restrictions and be really enforcement heavy on trying to ensure that that occurs. Only small cars are parked there. What I recommended though, because we don't have a curb or any physical barrier to stop vehicles from going onto the sidewalk, no matter which solution is chosen, I really highly recommend that a barrier of some sort be put in place, a physical barrier, so Jersey barriers, the cement blocks that would be used for parking in other situations, so that no matter what we choose, it keeps people from parking onto the sidewalk, so that we can ensure pedestrians have a safe place to go. So that's the current situation, that's the history on it, and the 3 recommendations that I brought forward.
Thanks for correcting. Questions, Deputy Mayor?
Just, I haven't seen the actual traffic summary report, but one-way heading towards Grand Rapids or one-way heading out to McDougall?
So there was an option for either.
So that's part of our decision as well, if I haven't heard that yet.
Yeah, that would be part of it.
So we talked to the other businesses and operators on that road as to what they would like Marcellus at the hotel, or the Métis wood shop, I think is there, the Métis offices are there, the daycare. Like, it's not just the McDougal Center that's gonna be affected.
By that option, correct?
Yeah. So has there
Oh,
been-
sorry, no, at this point, we haven't engaged in that.
Okay. So we don't know
My-
how they'll feel about it.
Yeah, my approach was that if that was a direction that council wanted to explore, we could certainly provide administrative support on that.
Thanks, Al.
Councillor Dean.
This is the parking that's right beside the GMWTH, our building. Okay, copy that. I mean, I've almost been out there myself walking, so it's concerning, and kids are little. I would agree with Deputy Mayor Kaiser, like, there's gonna be some issues if we don't reach out, you know, before you make a decision either way. Especially with, specifically Roaring Rapids Hall, it's such a pillar in the community, like, there's just constantly events going on there, so. But I would agree with, Debbie May Kaiser, you know, just reach out first before we can make a decision.
Councillor Benwell.
Is there any way, like right across the road, that ditches like this, is there any way you can fill that in and put a sidewalk on that side of the road? But that's another option, because either option, it's still not roomy enough. And, you know, the majority of this town, they drive trucks. And so, I don't know, I just think we should just fill in that ditch and put a, water. Nothing.
Right?
Oh, sorry, Director.
Thank you, Councillor Benwell. So there actually is a sidewalk on the other side of the street. There's a sidewalk on both sides of the street on that road. But people coming down that road often turn to walk down the street to the daycare. So I think it's still important to maintain that sidewalk. So there already actually is a sidewalk on both sides, but I appreciate that perspective. I do think that while parallel parking will reduce the total number of stalls by perhaps 3 or 4, it would be a pretty easy approach. It would reduce that need to interrupt businesses, the daycare room, etc. It would ease the enforcement need and still provide for that sidewalk on both sides, which I agree with you that it's nice to have that option.
Councillor Benwell.
But is there a need for such a steep ditch on that side? Like, can that be filled in? So it kind of winds the road a bit?
Yeah, thank you. I don't want to speak to the drainage needs. We have a director that deals with that, but I have a feeling that ditch is needed for drainage. If we've already eliminated a ditch on one side of the road, I think maintaining that drainage opportunity on the other side of the road is important. Something that could potentially be explored, but on the other side of the road.
Mayor Ferguson.
Yeah, I think definitely we should engage with the folks that use that road most often, like the businesses and the folks that are there. But I think changing to parallel parking in the interim, even if we do change it later to, well, one way either way, or then going back to angle parking, we can make that decision later based on the needs of what the group says there. But for immediate response to like the safety concerns that are there, if we change it, if there's only 3 or 4 stalls, change it to parallel parking, they still have all the parking in the other area, and then we can address the safety issue right away. That's what I'm thinking. And then engage with the folks that are impacted by an either one or whichever way we decide to do with that road and return to anchor parking.
Councillor Cox.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have any kind of idea who the main user of those parking spots is? Is it the building that's right in front there, or does the daycare and everybody use it?
Thank you, Councillor Cox. I don't have statistics, but certainly anecdotally, I would suggest that the primary user is that GNWT employment office. I know.
Thank you.
Councillor
I was just wondering, sorry, new to this, but like as far as process, do we just move if we want to pick one of the options, or?
We could. No, there isn't a motion on the floor. You could essentially make a motion, and then we could further discussion and then vote on it.
All right, I'll do that.
Okay, go
I'll
ahead.
take that option. So, I would like to move that we choose the parallel parking option. And my reasoning for that is I think it's the easiest action, and we can, like the mayor said, if after, we've tried that for a little while, and there's still some concerns about traffic flow, then we can further investigate and see if one way is a better option, but at least we can get that happening now.
I'll second that.
Okay.
And in agreement too, like, I think that it would be, like, we can address it right away, get folks, access to the sidewalk, still maintain a two-lane road there, and then maybe address it if it needs to be changed later.
Any further discussion regarding Councillor Heaton?
How are you gonna get this messaging across to, like, is it immediate? Like, is it tomorrow? Is it next week?
Director McCann?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Heaton, and that's a really important point. Like, we can't just change it tomorrow and expect people to change their behaviors or be aware of it. So it will be a phased approach. We do still need to work with the adjacent property owner simply because at the time of development, that development included signage that's attached to their building that says that it's angled parking. So we'll need to work with the property owner on changing signage. If the motion on the floor is as it's written here to include introducing some barriers, then we would need to look at ordering barriers and work with Public Works on what kind of barriers. We'll need to install some of our own signage, potentially some lines painted in the summer, things like that. So it won't happen overnight. It will be with public-facing communication in advance and working with the adjacent.
Copy that, thank you.
Just further to that, the process would require this motion to be approved at a regular council meeting 2 weeks down the road. So there is built-in buffer for public feedback on this as well. Deputy Mayor Keith?
Being new to the process is still, does this, to help our director, does this require some mention of a timeline or not? Like, Adam's gonna freestyle the motion that's written here. Sorry. But I can still understand it. But would it be better to have some reference to working with the community or working over months, or like to protect me, that aspect of how does this happen? I don't know. I've never done one of these, so this is new.
Director McCann or SAO?
I don't think we need to put in a timeline. I think once we've given the direction, as soon as he can do it and when the time is available and the resources are available, we can roll out.
Good. So I just want to make sure.
Councillor Pearson?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we
Hello,
can.
can you?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm not in favor of changing it into a one-way road from a two-way road. So I think that parallel parking is the best solution. And I would suggest the timeline should go until spring, so that the lines could be painted, for the spots for parallel parking or something like that, and the installation of signage. I don't think it should be an immediate thing. I think we should aim for spring, for full implementation.
Any further questions regarding the motion?
Just a clarification on the motion, is it to be read just like how, as here, it implies that we're gonna put barriers as option 3 as described in the briefing note? That,
That's exactly, I'll rephrase it so that the council selects the option to change to parallel parking, replacing angle, we'll put that all in there, we'll make sure it captures the
Okay.
entirety of that motion. We had it sort of 1, 2, 3 in our head.
Yeah.
What happens?
Any further questions? Okay, just for further clarification, the motion is the council selects option 3 to address the on-street parking configuration on Simpson Street. Option 3 is change to parallel parking, replace angle parking with parallel parking to improve safety and traffic flow. Introduce barriers separating parking stalls from the sidewalk to prevent vehicles from parking over sidewalks. That being the motion, all in favor? Passed unanimously. Okay, next item on the agenda is item E, other business. None was brought forward, so we'll move on to item F, which is excusing of counselors. Deputy Mayor, or Mayor, sorry.
I move that Councillor Tucky be excused from Protective Services Standing Committee meeting on March 4th, 2025.
Seconded by Deputy Mayor Keiser. All in favor? Passed unanimously. Next item G, a date of next meeting. The next Protective Services Standing Committee meeting will be on April 1, 2025. No fooling.
No.
Could I have a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
We all looked at the screen.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Councillor Bath. All in favor? Voted unanimous.